welcome back. I'm here with part 2 of how to move to New York City, and the title of this video is going to be where to live in New York City. And so for those of you who are returning, welcome back. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Brianna, aka Dollface PA, and let's get straight into it. So how do you find an apartment in New York City? Whoo, child. If there was anything that I wish I knew then that I know now, it would be this. So there's several websites. You can go on apartments.com, but I'm going to be honest with you. The best website for finding an apartment in New York City is streeteasy.com. City Realty is another good one, but it's still not as good as Street Easy. It's just not. Like, the way that Street Easy allows you to filter it just literally will allow you to find the perfect apartment. They let you filter it from price range, square footage, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, elevator, walk up. And I'll get into all that in a second, but just know that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I truly believe Street Easy was the best. I found all 3 of the apartments that I've lived in since I've been here on Street Easy, and I'm very happy with all of them. So there's that. Things you have to know. So coming from down south, there's just things about living in a New York City apartment that you just would not know. So most of these buildings that have apartment units in them are owned by someone. So they don't really have as many apartment complexes as you would be used to seeing like in more southern cities. I came to New York looking for an apartment complex, but in a lot of cases, they're just buildings. There's a landlord and then there's a broker. So in almost all cases, with the exception of some of the more luxurious, very high-end apartments, maybe like downtown or in Long Island City, or maybe even in Long Island, but I'm coming to you real regular right now. Okay, so let's just talk like we not millionaires. Okay, so you have to go through a broker, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know what a broker was. And so a broker is basically like somebody who is working in conjunction with the landlord to try to rent out a unit. And in most cases, it's just like a random unit in a building that's for rent. And so with that broker comes a lovely broker fee. And depending on who the broker is and what realty company they work for, sometimes the broker fee, you can expect it to be at least 1 month's rent. So for simplicity's sake, let's say I find an apartment that I love and the rent is $2,000 a month. The broker's fee will be at least $2,000 a month. In some cases, it may even be like $3,500. Because this is how the brokers get paid. They get paid for finding a tenant to rent out the unit. So up front, before you can even get the keys to your apartment, you gotta put down first month's rent, which is $2,000, broker's fee, which in this case, let's just say is $2,000, and security deposit, which is always another month of rent. So that's $6,000 out the gate that you gotta have money in hand just to get the keys to your apartment. Okay, so keep that in mind. It can be very expensive getting an apartment in New York. Of course, you can make that cost come down by getting a roommate, but me personally, I didn't want a roommate, and so I was willing to bite the cost if it meant that I could have my own space. So a lot of people think that it is just way too expensive to live here, and I honestly do agree with that. But the flip side to that is you are living in New York City. It's not like you're living in a whack city. This is the price you pay for living in a place like this. And there are ways to make it cheaper. For example, if you move to the Bronx, that's the cheapest borough, but it's far. If you want to live in the city, you're going to have to pay if you want to live in Manhattan. But the further uptown you go, the cheaper it gets. Long Island City is really nice. There are areas in Queens that are really nice, but all of these areas are branching out away from Manhattan, which is the area that most people try to stay close to. And so if you want to pay less, just go further out from the city, just understanding that you won't have the luxury or convenience of being as close to the central area in Manhattan that most people think of as their focal point. To some people that doesn't matter. To me, that mattered. I wanted to live in Manhattan. Again, like I said, you can get to most of these places on the train. So you can get to the Bronx on the train. You can get to Brooklyn on the train. You can get to Queens on the train, but it's going to take a while. Like, you might be on a train for an hour trying to get to Manhattan. You might be. Like, it's just something that you have to decide what is important to you. Another thing, a lot of times, whether you have an elevator in your building versus whether it's a walk-up type of building, and a walk-up just means that it's just steps, it's no elevator. A walk-up is always going to be cheaper than an elevator building for obvious reasons, because you're paying for the convenience of the elevator. If you have laundry on site, which means that you have laundry in your building, and I do not mean laundry in your unit, because most units, unless they're newer or very luxurious, do not have laundry in the building. I'm sorry, in the unit. If you're very lucky, it may be like in the first floor or on the basement that everybody in the building uses, but that is considered an amenity, so that will drive your rent up. A doorman. A lot of people only want to live in buildings that have doormen, which is somebody that literally just stands at the door and kind of monitors who's coming in and out the building. A lot of people feel more safe if they live in a building with the doorman, because they can kind of screen to make sure there's not, like, you know, people that don't belong in the building just hanging out and things like that. You're going to pay more for a doorman. So the reason I'm saying all these things is because if you're looking for a way to move to New York and not like break the bank, these are things that you could nix out of the equation and like drive your rent down. So the first thing that can make your rent cheaper is getting a roommate. There's so many different websites to find roommates. I think Roomie, is it called Roomie? Roomster. People are like on that website 24 hours a day looking for roommates. Like, you can definitely find a roommate, but like, I wasn't gonna move with a random. So you can get a roommate that will make your rent way cheaper. You can live in a building that's a walk-up, live in a building that doesn't have laundry on site. There are laundromats on every block. This is New York. And obviously, like, there's a convenience factor there. It's not as convenient to have to leave your house to do laundry, but I did it. I did it for 2 years. My last building that I lived in didn't have laundry. And it was not super convenient, but it also wasn't the worst thing in the world. It really wasn't. You can move in a building that does not have a doorman. All of these things will drive the rent down. You can move further uptown. If you go like to the highest point in Manhattan, like Inwood, it's going to be a lot cheaper. And so all things to consider. For just like geographic sake, a lot of people that are not from New York or familiar with New York think that Harlem is a borough. Harlem is a neighborhood in Manhattan. So Harlem is just an area in Manhattan. So people that live in Harlem still live in Manhattan. So I just want to say that, because a lot of people don't know that. Harlem is like between, I don't know, depending on who you ask, everybody says something different. And I'm not from New York, so y'all don't come for me. But I think it's like 103rd up to like, I don't know, like 145th, 150th. Anything in between that is considered like Harlem. That is just a neighborhood, it's an area. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm okay with being corrected. But once you get above like the 150th, you're going into like Washington Heights. And once you're below like 103, that's like Upper West Side, stuff like that. So the reason why Street Easy is such a great tool is because you can literally put in exactly what you're looking for, even down to what train you want to be near. And that is so important. I cannot stress that enough, y'all. Oh my goodness. As a matter of fact, story time. So when I first moved to New York, basically I went on apartments.com, found my apartment. It was great. It was expensive, but I liked it. I liked the pictures. And I went on Google Maps and I put in the address of the apartment and I put in the address of my job. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like my apartment is only 7 minutes away from my job. Like, it's lit. Little did I know I was going to be living on the east side, and the train that I needed to take to get to work was on the west side. That's the problem. And it probably doesn't make sense to people who are not familiar with the subway, but I would have literally had to walk across Manhattan from east to west to get to the train. So my walk to the train was like a 35-minute walk. So I ended up having to take like a crosstown bus across town just to get to the train. And it made my commute to work every day over an hour and a half. And I lived 7 minutes away from my job. So the most important thing is going to be to figure out which train do you need to be by. And you can put that into your street easy search. Like if you want to be near the 123 line, you can put that in there. If you want to be near the ACE, like whatever you want to be near, you can factor that into your search because it matters. It matters. It matters. Your commute, your daily commute to work plays such a large role in your overall quality of life. And I know that probably sounds like a dramatic statement to make, but when you're outside battling the elements, on days that it's snowing, on days that it's raining, and you still got to go to work, and you're commuting an hour and a half in the elements to work, that's not the wave. So be very intentional about making sure that you live near a train that's convenient for you. And sometimes that may cause you to have to pay a little bit more for the convenience of living near the train that you need to live by, but I'm telling you, it's worth it in the end. Other amenities that, you know, you're gonna wanna inquire about, is there an on-site gym? Do they allow pets? That's a big one. A lot of buildings in New York do not allow pets. Sometimes they do allow dogs, but only up to a certain size. You gotta ask about all of that. Is there a mail room? Oh my gosh. Let me talk about the mail situation here in New York City. Y'all, it's tragic. I don't know if anybody from New York has ever talked to you about the problem with mail here in New York. Y'all, I haven't really reliably been able to receive mail since I moved here. And honestly, like if it's a very important package that I know I can't afford to miss, I just send it to my mom's house because people will steal your packages. If you don't have a building that has a secure mailroom, the chances of your package getting stolen, if they deliver it on a day where you're not home, and if you're like me and you have a full-time job, a lot of times you're not home at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, your package will get stolen. And it's unfortunate, but I have had $200 packages stolen right off my front porch. Like, it has happened so many times. And it's unfortunate, but it's just really not safe to have packages delivered. And I would say that like, a locked mailroom can make that situation better, but like I lived in an apartment with a locked mailroom. I have friends that live in apartments with locked mailrooms who still get their packages stolen out of the mailroom. And I mean, you would think that like, you know, oh, like my super is gonna help me. They're gonna run the cameras back and see who stole my package. This is New York. Nobody cares. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, nobody cares. Call your credit card company and tell them the package was stolen and try to get your money back. That's your best bet. It's unfortunate. Even with Amazon, like my advice would be like to deliver it to an Amazon locker. So for those of you who are not familiar with Amazon lockers, they're all over the city. They're like in random places, like you can find them in Whole Foods. You can literally get your packages delivered there and they'll like safely hold it for you. And they'll send you a code when the package arrives and you show them the code and they give you the package. That's the safest way for me to receive Amazon packages. Or like, for example, if I'm ordering like a HelloFresh box, which is a meal service that I do, I make sure that the delivery is gonna come on an off day where I know I'm off work. And it's unfortunate that I have to do that because sometimes I'm like confined to the house on an off day because I don't wanna miss the delivery. But at the same time, if it's a package that I can't afford to get stolen, then I just have to be here to get it. If like people are trying to send me something, like if it's very important, I have a mailbox. So if it's something that can fit in my mailbox, I'm usually okay. But if it's something that can't fit in my mailbox, I usually tell them to send it to my mom's house. That's just the reality of it. So just keep that in mind. Like when you move here, if you don't have a secure and reliably secure place for your mail to get delivered, be very mindful of the things you get delivered to your house. And if you don't have an option of sending it to somebody else's house that can like reliably and safely receive packages, I would even maybe say to consider getting a PO box at the post office. And I know it's like annoying, but like this is one of the things that I say like makes living in New York like just so annoying sometimes, because it's the unnecessary stuff like this that you have to deal with that you don't necessarily deal with if you live anywhere else. One thing you have to get used to living in New York City is the noise. It's loud. It's a loud city. it is a loud city. And I mean, when you live right in the city, you're gonna hear sirens. You're gonna hear people outside. You're gonna hear dogs barking. Like, the units are very close together. You're gonna hear your neighbors. You're gonna hear their music. You're gonna hear them talking on the phone. You're gonna hear the people above you walking around, or if they're stomping, or if they have a lot of people, or if they're having a party, you're gonna hear it. And honestly, like, I was a very, very light sleeper before I moved to New York, but honestly, I really think I just adapted to it. People are outside blasting music, especially in the summertime, at all times of night. You just adapt to the noise. You get used to it. You get used to it. Of course, some neighborhoods are more quiet than others, but generally New York is just a lot louder than what you're probably used to if you're coming from like down south, where, you know, you have a front yard, a backyard, your neighbors a little further away from you than arm's reach. Yeah, it's loud. Things are very small. The apartments are small. Obviously, if you want a bigger apartment, you're gonna pay more money. But yeah, hit me up in the comments if you have any specific questions. In terms of price point, I don't really want to get too much into that, but what I will say is that most brokers require that you make, I don't want to say the wrong number, but I think you have to make like because they require you to give them like all of your salary information and stuff. They run your background, all of that, run your credit. And you have to give them like a letter from your employer, like stating what your annual salary is. And your annual salary has to be like 40 times the monthly rent. So like, they kind of won't even let you get an apartment that you can't afford, because you won't even pass the application process. So like, if you make, it might not be 40. I think it varies depending on the landlord. I think this apartment that I live in now, you had to make 40 times the monthly rent to be able to live here. I'm pretty sure it was 40. And obviously you have to have good credit, or you can get a guarantor. I don't know how to say that word because I've never had to use one. Glory be to God, I have good credit. But that's basically like somebody that will like co-sign if your credit is bad and like you need their credit to help you out to be approved for the apartment. But yeah, you have to make a certain amount of money to be able to live there. So if your rent is $2,000 a month and you have to make 40 times 2,000, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, it's just living within your means, trying to find ways to save money. It's super expensive to eat out here. Uber Eats is a joke. Your food is gonna be cold. The service fees, y'all. I paid $26 for a Chick-fil-A sandwich and some fries and a drink. So just cook if you want to save money. Y'all, it's possible. I'm telling you. You can move to New York. It's possible. You could rent a room. Whatever floats your boat, whatever suits you, whatever you're comfortable with. They even have like furnished units. There's a way to do it. You know, a lot of people move to Jersey, but the thing about Jersey is you have to have a reliable way to get in the city. So like, if you don't have a car, you know, I don't even want to get into that. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, please don't hesitate to hit me up. Thank you for watching. Y'all be blessed. I love y'all.